Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sleep Matters podcast from Dreams. Everything you ever needed to know about how to get a good night's sleep and why it matters so much. I'm Dr. Pixie McKenna, and in this episode, we're chatting about the realities of living with insomnia and some of the techniques as to how you can help it. I'm joined today by Matt Johnson. Welcome, Matt.
Hello there.
Now, during the day, Matt, you're a broadcaster. You're also an ambassador for Mind. But by night, you're a little bit of an insomniac. Now, tell me about it.
Oh, it's. Do you have all day? Yeah. And night. Well, so 10 years ago, I went through a very difficult time with my mental health, quite chronic depression, which went hand in hand with chronic sleep deprivation, severe insomnia. It was at the most hellish period of my entire life, culminating in coming to a time when I felt as if my only way out of this mess was to take my own life.
Right.
Yeah, so it got to that point, which was 10 years ago this November, 2009. So I kind of know what it feels like to be in this empty void of emptiness. That's exactly what I was, and helplessness. I'm not sure whether the sleep went first or the depression started or anything, what the cause of the problem was. And since then, I've had issues with my sleep. Obviously, I didn't take my own life. And since then, it's been a long process to work out why I got into that situation mentally. And it seems like with every step that I took to try and improve my mental health and my physical well-being, my sleep got a little better. But then sometimes I would lose control of my sleep. And over the last 10 years, it's really fluctuated. So I've had really good periods, short periods of great sleep, almost too much sleep. And then another period 2 years ago when I was making the documentary about my period of depression, I went through a severe chronic, and I was diagnosed with chronic sleep deprivation.
Right.
And I had a sleep analysis test with the lovely University of Cardiff, and they really looked into it during my documentary. And so I, more than most, I think, would know what it feels like to be knackered.
I was just going to say, so are you knackered? I mean, are you tired all the time, or do you just manage?
I manage at the moment. I have to say I'm going through a really difficult time with my sleep.
Right.
Not mental health, not with physical health. I'm relatively healthy. My sleep patterns are all over the place. And I kind of know the reasons for that at the moment.
Yeah.
Am I tired? Yes. Can I manage? 100%. The busier that I am, the easier that life is.
Yeah.
I need stuff to do.
Right.
I need to keep my mind occupied. But yeah, there was a period, like I say, 10 years ago, where I was just constantly tired, like in a different level tired. And I know a lot of my friends recently having babies, and they're like, "You have no idea what tired is." And I'm like, I kind of do. It must be different levels of tiredness that people go through, but at least you have a baby to look at and go, "Oh, isn't he amazing? Or she amazing?" And you know, when I go through my periods of just lack of sleep, and that would be anything between 2 and 3 hours sleep a night.
Wow.
It's a different level of tiredness.
Yeah.
It's like jet lag, but times 10.
Jet lag, but you haven't got the excuse or the sympathy from anyone because...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you, how do you manage that? I mean, I can do a few days of not sleeping, but then I'm useless and I'm cranky. And I need to repay that sleep debt. Otherwise, I can't go on. How do you manage? How do you manage on?
It's no real formula. I try and get some routine in my life.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I learned from my entire experience with the documentary by speaking to experts was to reassess my relationship with sleep. Mm-hmm. So my relationship with sleep is a lot better. So I don't punish myself by lying in bed if I'm tired. I get up and I do stuff. I don't just lie in bed and think of worst case scenarios in my head anymore. I say, I'm not sleeping. I'm only going to go to bed if I'm tired.
Yeah.
And that's how I deal with it. And then if I only get to sleep at about 6 a.m, I make sure I'm still up at 8. So I try and get myself tired for the evening and have routine. I rearrange my bedroom. I have the perfect bed for me that I've taken a while to try and find. I try and have no...
Does that make a difference, by the way? Because you know the way we say, I don't sleep in a hotel, and I don't sleep here, and I don't sleep there. And actually, I would sleep, if I need sleep, I'll go down the floor and sleep. I have no issue. But has that made a difference to you?
It really has. Much like I'm retraining my dog to kind of live in 2 different houses, my girlfriend's and mine at the moment, and he needs his own space in both, an area where he feels comfortable, his zone, where he has his toys and my t-shirt so it smells like me, and we're getting used to it. I'm very similar, so I needed my cocoon, my nest, and what that meant to me was I had my area that was just for sleep, my bedroom. So I had no TV in there, no radio, and no electrics really. I tried not to use my phone an hour before bed, and if I did, I'd turn it on to night mode. But having the right bed for me and choosing it, owning it, spending a lot of money on it, because I think for me it was the time and effort that I spent on it gave it value. So if I valued it, I'd take care of it more. And I found that the best bed for me, and I really, from then on, I think that was the central point, and then I built outwards from it, and from that, and when I have routine, when I have good diet, and I have good exercise, and things are going okay with work, I do tend to sleep well in that bed, and sleep is the best thing in the entire world when you do it right. It genuinely is, and I really value it, and I feel for people that don't have it, and I completely understand. But for me personally, having that base, creating your nest in that harem that I had, that was the most important first step for me.
It's probably a step that maybe a lot of people don't think of, because I know seeing patients and they can't sleep, and they never really, I guess, they're lying in bed with their eyes open, but they're not looking around and thinking, I could really have blackout blinds, I could have earplugs, I could take that stupid digital clock out of the room, I could sort the bed out and stop it from creaking, I don't know.
Do you know, it's the same thing as we don't take care of ourselves. Same with mental health. I've worked for 10 years now within the mental health industry, and it's the same thing as in like, I'll just be fine. Margaret Thatcher lived on 4 hours sleep a night. I'll be fine too.
I know.
Those old habits are still within us subconsciously. We're all like, it mustn't be me. It's just, I'm just not aware, or I'm just a bit sketchy about something. Whereas we all know, and we should all know, that there are certain things that we all can do to help ourselves, and that's to help our mental health and our physical health and our sleep pattern. And it's drinking lots more water. It's getting the right sleeping materials for yourself, and not watching TV all night and then going to bed. Not exercising really late. Well, for me, all these things are really relevant, and finding the right thing or right bed that's right for you. It sounds like a bed advert, and I don't want it to be like this, but it can't be. But the reality is we have to put value on our sleep, because we do need it, and we don't realize how much we do need it, and we spend so much time, or ideally 6 to 8 hours a night. I think you're the doctor. But
I'll go with
is
that.
it around 6 to 8, right? That would be nice, a continual sleep. And sometimes I've got a friend that doesn't sleep in one block. He wakes up in the middle of the night, like I think they must have done centuries ago, and he's like awake and hungry, and then he goes back to sleep, and then he wakes up and he has another nap in the afternoon. That sounds perfect to me, but he's found the right pattern for him. So for me, the most important thing is putting value on what's important in life. And for me, flipping from, I hate sleep, I hate my bedroom, I don't want it, I don't need it, I'm just going to drink to pass out, then saying, no, you must love sleep, you must care for it, you must treat it with the respect that it deserves, and then financially put your effort into that, and put your physical and mental effort into it. And when I did that, and when things are okay, and I'm not spinning too many plates with work, it does work for me.
And when you go somewhere else, do you have anything that you take with you, like your dog, the T-shirt or whatever? Do you have some stuff that you might take if you're sleeping in a different bed?
Very interesting. I don't, and I'm away a lot with work. I tend to sleep okay in hotel rooms, weirdly enough. But But I try and meditate. I try and have that one routine just before I go to bed. I'm terrible at meditating.
Right.
I'm terrible. But I have to do something. I have to stretch or do something that it's just a little bit of a routine. But I don't. Well, I just take the ideology of self-care with me.
Yeah.
I don't have a comfort blankie, unfortunately. I should. It's a good idea. And I wish I could take my dog everywhere, but Alan is not allowed in most hotels.
You've got a dog called Alan.
Yeah. Good, isn't it?
The first dog I've ever heard of called Alan.
Yeah, all dogs should be called white van drivers' names, I think. Tony, Alan, Steve.
Brilliant. Would you, like, when you have to recover from your insomnia, so if you've had a bad run, what are your recovery tricks? What do you try and do during the day? Do you do anything? Do you nap during the day?
I try and nap. I try and nap as much as I can. I'm just in a really busy period at the moment, which is why I'm not sleeping. My eczema's bad because of it. I'm a little bit ratty. I was ratty yesterday working. I'm just covering a lot of bases with work.
And I guess do as you have done is ask for, if you're in trouble, ask for help. You need to
100%.
get help.
Yeah, and that's the stigma attached to lack of sleep is silly. You know, I remember when I used to have my sleep problem and go, I'm going to go for a nap. What do you mean you go for a nap, you wuss? You know, it's like, I'm tired. I need it. You know, Spain, they go for siestas all the time. It's part of their culture. Our culture is snap out of it, you'll be fine. In any sort of illness, you know, mental illness especially, and lack of sleep especially. So, it's just the nap element of the UK should be implemented. We should take time.
It's seen as laziness, isn't it, really?
It's seen as lazy.
What are you doing in bed in the middle of the
I
day?
had a lie-in today. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It's because I didn't get to sleep till 3 in the morning. I wasn't playing computer games or watching the telly. I just couldn't sleep. So my sleep pattern's different to yours. And it's the acceptance of that stigma, because there's a huge stigma attached to not sleeping.
Well, it's like a badge of honour, isn't it? You know, I was working all and I only had 2 hours sleep, but I'm fine. I'll keep going.
Yeah, well done. Great stuff. You'll pass out soon.
You eat, yeah.
Yeah, you
exactly.
absolute fool.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, because it's really good to hear, Matt. It's good to hear someone who's, you know, lived through it and still, you know, dips in and out of the insomnia. It's very, very important. And good tip about the bed, because I think, certainly from my experience, it's true with people, they don't think about their sleep surroundings, and that's really, really important as well.
Yeah.
So wishing you lots of nice, sleepful nights
over
the coming months.
I appreciate it. Could you actually do like lots of recordings for me? Because your voice is calming. This is why she was chosen, I reckon. It's calm,
because I'm so boring.
No, it's not that. Yeah. No, your voice is very calming.
Oh, thank you so much.
Can you do my tom-tom? Can you be Siri on my phone?
I'm not sure they'd understand if I had to say 33 and things like that.
And just record that. That's perfect. Thank you. Well, it's lovely to meet you. I think this is a really important issue that we should all really look at. And take it really seriously. It's very important to do that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sleep well. And now we're going to hear from Kathryn Pinkham. And Kathryn is the founder of the Insomnia Clinic. And that's actually one of the UK's only specialist insomnia services. Welcome, Kathryn. And I guess you had an awesome night's sleep last night.
Well, I actually had a late night last night, so I had less sleep than I probably should have last night, actually.
Well, it's great to have you here,
Thank you.
because if anyone's going to know, it has to be the founder of the Insomnia Clinic. So I'm going to ask the first question, which I'm dying to know, is what brought you to finding and deciding that this was what was needed?
So my background was in mental health. So I worked in psychological services. And as part of the work that we were doing, we were trained in working with people with sleep problems. And what I found was that so many people had sleep problems, and they were really easily treated. And I had this sort of epiphany that actually, case by case by case, every patient I saw, this light bulb would go on when I explained to them about sleep and how they could fix it. And they were coming back saying that actually their mental health problems and their anxiety and their mood were all improved positively by fixing their sleep. And I think historically sleep has sort of been seen as a secondary problem. So the mental health problem was the biggest problem, and then the sleep was just a side effect of that. But now more so it's being seen that actually sleep can be the main problem, and that actually if someone suffers with poor sleep, it's pretty unlikely that they won't, if they suffer with it for long enough and severely enough, it's unlikely that they wouldn't then develop some anxiety, some stress and some mood problems, because when we're tired all the time, it's really hard not to feel that way. Mm-hmm. So I was made redundant from the NHS, and I thought, I wonder if I could just pick this one niche market and just work only with these people. And I started offering my own sessions. They filled up really quickly, and then I had inquiries from other places in the country, and it grew from there. So I trained up other people, and kind of as a team, we're trying to work with as many people as we can, because it is such a huge area.
Huge problem. Yeah. And I guess many of us will say, oh, I've got insomnia, I can't sleep. But, give me your definition, or if someone's listening, how might they, by definition, be an insomniac?
So, I think it's interesting, because insomnia sounds quite scary. I think a lot of people who have insomnia probably think they don't, because insomnia sounds like you're awake all night, every night, and you never get any sleep at all. But actually, insomnia is defined as trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, waking, not feeling refreshed, more than 3 times a week, and having lasted longer than 3 months. So actually, if you're somebody who goes to bed and it takes you a couple of hours to fall asleep, or you wake up at 4 a.m. and you're awake for a couple of hours every night, actually that is classed as insomnia, and therefore treatable in the way that we treat it.
So we shouldn't be walking around saying or just accepting the fact that, and loads of people say it, oh, I'm a poor sleeper, or I'm tired all the time.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that lots of people do accept it. I mean, I meet people all the time, and when I tell them what they do, everybody knows somebody who doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I think people do accept it, and it's, in some ways kind of having not enough sleep is seen as a badge of honour, that, you're working so hard, you only get 5 hours a night. So, some people kind of are quite proud of it. And I think lots of people don't really realise that they're not getting enough. They don't realise the impact that it's possibly having on them.
And if somebody's listening and they think, well, my sleep might be problematic, what are the signs, what are the cues for them in terms of their physical and mental well-being that might make you think, actually, you need to sort your sleep?
Yeah.
And actually lots of other things will improve.
So I think the first sort of signs would be if you're aware that you're just starting to spend more time in bed awake. So a good sleeper spends very little time awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what time it is, or looking at the clock. I think when you start to notice those kind of things, and it's becoming a habit, and you go to bed thinking about how well you're going to sleep and whether or not you're going to fall asleep, that for me is a great point to actually get help. Then that can be nipped in the bud really early.
So ultimately, actually, sleep diary is good, isn't it? And in someone who's worried about their sleep, if you're going to go and see your doctor, it's good to be able to talk about the quantity and the quality of your sleep, and also all those lifestyle things around it that are going to be affecting your sleep, which we sometimes don't disclose or don't think about.
And we say to people during treatment, it's useful to keep the sleep diaries to see how they're getting on. But at the end of it, I say to people, let's just behave like a normal sleeper. And normal sleepers aren't recording all of this. They don't know any of this information. So actually just rip it up and forget about it after that. We don't need to pay so much attention to the ins and outs of it.
I see a lot of patients that can't sleep, and they're very often telling me what the impact that has in terms of their work, their assumed productivity, arguments, concentration, accidents, etc. Do you see that as I guess, life for someone who can't sleep? What are the sort of problems that they...
Yeah, and I think... When somebody can't sleep well, what they tend to do is misattribute everything that's going wrong to the lack of sleep. So people get really worried about work and ability to perform at work and parent and drive. Everything can kind of, because sleep is dangerous. If people are sleep deprived, we know that there is lots of kind of reports about how dangerous it can be. And so I guess part of the work that I'm doing with people is empathizing with how stressful it can be, but also saying, okay, we're going to do what we can do with the sleep, but what else could you be doing to manage some of those things, and what other support could you be getting for those things? Because as I say, it does turn into that when someone's stressed, is kind of how you're describing there, possibly just fixing their sleep is not going to be everything. But I say, for a typical person, a typical insomniac would say it affects every area of their life. Absolutely. People, as I said in the beginning, people find it really difficult to remain upbeat, happy, not stressed if they're not sleeping well. It really is a pillar of mental health that we can't ignore it. We can't fix the other things if someone isn't sleeping well.
And I suppose many people will think if they start not sleeping well, they'll all know someone who doesn't sleep well, or an auntie or whatever, that she never slept, she was on sleeping tablets for 40 years, etc., etc. They think they will become that person.
Yeah.
And that's so...
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, you know, especially for somebody who's perhaps suffered with depression in the past, and as part of that depression, they probably didn't sleep. One bad night's sleep is terrifying for them because they think they're going to go back to that place again. And, you know, maybe at that time they had to be off work sick because they weren't sleeping and they were so unhappy. So it's you know, I suppose it is a little bit like the cycle of depression, that actually, if you've had depression in the past and you have a bad day, it's very hard to not panic because you desperately don't want to go back to where you used to be.
And so your premise of going back to basics, is that having a bedtime and a strict bedtime and wake time?
Yeah, so the first step that I would get people to take would be reduce this window of time in bed. So if you're in bed for 8 hours, 9 hours every night, but you're only asleep for 6, and that's broken 6 somewhere in there, I would say let's reduce that window down to 6 hours, because what we can do is then teach your body, actually, you no longer have this opportunity to be in bed for 8 hours and pick and choose when you want to sleep in that window. You just have one 6-hour window. So what happens now is when you wake up nice and early and you go to bed later, your appetite for sleep is much higher. Your drive is much higher. So we're kind of going right back to basics and saying that actually, if you are tired enough and we can create a bit of a mild sleep deprivation, your chances of falling asleep quicker and staying asleep longer are suddenly much higher. Whereas what our initial reaction to do is to always go to bed earlier. But we've lost that drive. You know, if it's been darker for longer, if we're getting sort of towards 11 o'clock, midnight, even 12:30, it's been darker for longer, your body recognises that, your melatonin is higher, and we will fall asleep quicker, get up nice and early the next day, and start repeating this pattern. And what people will see is that pretty quickly, their sleep sort of condenses into a better quality in that window because they're a little bit sleep deprived. And we're creating that, we're managing their sleep deprivation. And then when that starts to work, we just slowly open out that window bit by bit and get something that feels better for them. So the biggest question that people would probably ask is, how do I fall asleep quicker? And it's a really simple one for me. I go, well, you just need to go to bed later. If it takes you an hour and a half to fall asleep, you should just go to bed an hour and a half later. You're not losing anything because you're awake anyway. And now you can be downstairs, you can watch TV, you can do something. When you're lying in bed, all you're doing is creating this bond with your bed that is about being awake. And our minds always stray, we always worry, and we always turn to sort of negative thinking if we've been lying in bed for long enough. So my advice is actually just cut that piece of the puzzle out, take it downstairs, go to bed later, get up early, and that drive will look after itself.
And what about weekends? You know, if you're normally up at a certain time or have to get up at a certain time, are you allowed to have a little
well,
snooze
button?
I'm
quite sort of, I suppose I'm quite fair with patients that I would say, whilst we're trying to fix it, let's stick with it 7 days a week to fix it. But actually lots of people fix it really quickly, and under 4 weeks they're sleeping much better. And then after that, I'd say absolutely not. You know, don't set your alarm at the weekends, but don't worry about it so much. It's fine. You will get, as long as your routine is sort of there, you only go to bed because you're really tired, you're not going to bed too early, you're not waking up too late, then actually, we don't need to stick rigidly with that. And I think that probably the idea of routine being important is true, but it has to be the right routine. And I see lots of people who their routine is, I go to bed at 10 and my alarm goes off at 6, but they're not actually that tired at 10. And actually by going to bed at 10, they've rushed around, had to tidy the whole house, make the dinner really quickly, chuck the kids in bed, no time to do anything, and then dash to bed. So I would say, well, actually, why don't you go to bed at 11? And then you've got a whole hour there, which is time to wind down, de-stress, get a few jobs done for tomorrow, clear your head a little bit, enjoy some time. So go to bed later, but that quality would be better, because for me it's quality of sleep, not quantity. Yeah, I mean, quantity is great. If you can get both, then obviously great, but it's far more important to get 6-7 quality hours of sleep than 8 broken hours because you're striving for 8.
And what are the things that you would say, no way? I mean, what are your tips and your advice in terms of things? If you're a bad sleeper, what do you have to get rid of?
So of the sleep hygiene things, I suppose when people come to see me, that it's the sleep hygiene is probably in the way rather than helping. I would say I advise people to use caffeine. So I go, actually, if you're doing this sleep restricted window and you're trying to fix your sleep, have a cup of tea in the morning. Good sleepers are having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Have one mid-morning or just after lunch if you wanted. That's not going to affect this new bedtime. But what it is going to do is give you a helping hand that, as I say, all the good sleepers are doing. All the good sleepers are still having a cup of tea in the afternoon because they're tired. It's the poor sleepers who are suffering trying to get through caffeine-free, even though they didn't sleep very well. So my advice to them is actually, wake up in the morning, have a cup of tea, keep a nice routine and be healthy during the day. stop your caffeine after lunch. Don't have anything too close to bedtime. TV's fine, reading a book's fine. Screen time, minimising it. I mean, I think the advice is 2 hours before. I would kind of say to people, if you're not going to do it 2 hours before, then do it an hour before. I try to make it, what are you actually going to stick
realistic,
with? Realistic is all very well saying 2 hours, but I check my phone right before I go to bed. So I don't practice what I preach, but I still sleep okay. So I guess sleep hygiene is definitely good advice, and it's sensible advice. But it doesn't need to be bang on 9:30. I have to turn this off, and then I've got to give this, and I have to sit quietly for an hour and wind down before bed. For me, that's putting too much pressure on sleeping. So my absolute no-nos would be don't be on laptops and iPads all evening. That's going to inhibit your development of melatonin. Try not to go to bed with loads of things on your mind. I encourage people to write stuff down. Even if you're aware that the thing that was on your mind last night in the middle of the night isn't on your mind now, still write it down in the daytime, kind of preempt it. Write it down, spend 20 minutes, write down everything that's on your mind, and at the end of the 20 minutes, just close the book and then distract yourself, do something else. But going to bed later stops this racing mind. If you're tired enough, you will sleep. Whatever's on your mind, you can get to sleep. It's going to bed too early and kind of keeping that habit going and that cycle going that increases that negative thinking in bed.
And how long, if you can't sleep, should you stay in bed for? Do you get out after 20 minutes, half an hour?
So we would kind of advise the 20-minute rule. For me, 20 minutes is the maximum. To be honest, if you've been awake for 2 minutes and you're already wound up and you've already checked the clock 3 times and counted how many hours, then just leave the bedroom. Yeah. Because and people say, but I have less chance of sleeping. For me, it's no difference. You can either be in bed having all that kind of negative associations being built with your bed, or you can just go downstairs, totally change your mindset, turn the TV on for 10 minutes and then go back to bed when you feel sleepy, and you're far more likely to fall asleep. By doing that.
That's good to hear, because people do just lie there, don't they? And then wake up somebody else very often.
And I think it comes from, our mums always said to us, well, at least you're resting. And I suppose what I'm saying to people is, but it's not restful.
Resting your eyes.
You're resting your eyes. And I say, but actually, describe to me how restful is that experience? And it's not at all. It's actually awful. It's really stressful. Your partner's lying in bed and actually fast asleep and you hate them for it. You're worrying about loads of different things. So actually, it's not resting. There's nothing restful about it. So leave the bedroom, go back downstairs, do something else, and then go back to bed.
So you sleep well?
Yeah, I do sleep well, yeah. And I do sleep well, but I think it's interesting because I do sleep well. If I do have problems sleeping, I don't take my own advice. I would lie in bed just like everybody else.
Right.
I'd have to have bad sleep for a good week before I'll start taking this advice, because it's not natural. You don't want to give up and get out of bed. Nobody wants to leave the bedroom. No. So I am a good sleeper, but I think what I can always say to patients is, I am a good sleeper, but what you need to know is, that doesn't mean that everything else is rosy. I don't wake up and jump out of bed every morning. I still would be irritable. I still look tired sometimes. And I think that when someone's been a poor sleeper for a long time, they kind of put sleep on this pedestal that actually their concentration would be better, they would be happier, they would be less irritable. Yeah. And I'm not saying that good sleep isn't important. Of course it is, but it isn't necessarily going to fix all of these things. Yeah. So I kind of get people to say, well, okay, let's be realistic about expectations here. You're looking for 8 perfect hours every night to equal this new life. Let's kind of look at that and make sure the goals are rational and realistic.
But ultimately, I think we could all improve. Probably.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think it's hard now to sleep. The 24-hour phones and lights. There's so much to do. At any point, I can do a job on my phone in the middle of the night when it pops into my head, and that's definitely affecting people's sleep. So it's a 24-hour society. Loads of stress. Everybody's too busy. Not enough hours in the day. So it is a problem. It is definitely a problem for lots of people.
But it's good. I mean, it's good for people to hear about CBT for insomnia, because I don't think many people, although you've said it's around for the last 20, 25 years, I don't think many people know or what's involved in it. So I think that's brilliant. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's been really, really helpful. Thank you for watching the Sleep Matters podcast from Dreams. If you enjoyed it, then please press the like button below. And if you want to see more, then you can subscribe to this series.